heard this one before. It's time for marketing management. In this episode, we're going to be talking about professional selling. Selling is actually a fairly common occurrence. We attempt to communicate with and persuade other people on a daily basis. However, when most people realize that they're doing this in exchange for money, what we would consider to be an actual sales context, this can feel quite unnatural and uncomfortable for people. As with any other human communication, the best place to start is to actually believe in what it is that you're trying to convince other people to do. If you think the beach is the best place to hang out with your friends, you go about forming an argument for your friends as to why that would be a great place for all of you to hang out. The same thing happens when you sell professionally. You start here, as with all marketing actions, in deeply understanding your customers' needs. The golden age of the 1950s and 60s, where we made stuff up and lied to people and tried to dupe them out of money, is long gone. There are far too many other competitors out there who will rise up and actually effectively meet the needs of those customers so that they don't have to put up with you doing those things. When people are not yet customers yet, we refer to them as prospects. And you should start building information about these prospects so that you can use that information to communicate with them in the future. This goes in your CRM, your customer relationship management information database, so that you can track those customers and most effectively communicate with them. Salesforce.com is a great example of a company that has made its mark on industry by providing services around customer relationship management. But you can also, for a much lower price, do the same thing through an Excel spreadsheet, for example. Heck, back in the old days when I worked for Norfolk Southern, we would keep prospect information and customer information in packets of paper in files in a file folder, and then we would write information in the margins of business cards. Now for you all, these may be business contacts or they may be consumer contacts. And the information that we start keeping on them initially is very basic. Name, who do they work for, what's their position, what's their contact information, and so forth. Some information that you can get is much deeper, like does this person have a family? What do they like to do with their spare time, and so forth. The golden age of the internet and social media has allowed us access to much greater and richer resources of information about potential customers. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of these things are people posting information about themselves and their interests online for other people to find. LinkedIn is actually a really fantastic site for going and looking up business prospects and trying to engage with them, because you can see on their pages what kinds of value you might be able to create for them and if they are in the right target segment for you. Again, this goes back to wanting to make customers feel special, like the brand was actually made with them in mind. As you have additional contacts, you'll record more and more information that you can use to effectively communicate with that person and deepen the relationship. Some other columns that you want to think about including in a database are, when was your last contact? That way you know how long it's been since you've contacted a person and you can create an effective schedule. What was that last contact about and what was the result of that contact? Did they buy? Did they move to another stage of engagement? Or did they kind of say no and put you off? When is the next time that you're going to contact them and what will that contact be about? This should all be very deliberately developed. And whenever possible, you should link your database into a calendar so that you get notifications that tell you exactly when you're supposed to call on someone, who you're supposed to call on, and why. So now we've covered a bit of the prep and moving toward an actual sales call, which should reduce your nerves a little bit. We also want to talk about creating a process and using some of the tools that will increase our success rates. People in general are much more comfortable when they know that there's a particular process that they're going to go through and that they can set some expectations about how that process is going to go down. Uncertainty is what really makes us nervous. If you can anticipate potential pitfalls, rejections, you'll feel much more prepared and you'll feel more at ease. It's when we don't know and we don't know what the expectation is that we're going to get flustered. This is why professional selling is so difficult for many people. Until we've experienced uncertainty, failure, rejection multiple times, we don't know exactly how to deal with it. That's where trepidation comes from. In a few minutes, I'll tell you why I like to hear no thank you every now and again and get rejected. Now, there are tons of authors out there that write on personal selling, professional selling, and they'll discuss all these topics that I'm about to present to you here. So here, I'll refer you to the book that I like, which is Robert Cialdini's Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Mostly because this jives with my personal professional selling style and because it's got an amalgam of tools that you can use in order to increase your success rates as a salesperson. Mind you, none of these tools or collections of these tools is a 100% guaranteed foolproof means of influencing somebody else. But what these will do are vastly increase the probabilities that you're going to have success given multiple contacts. Now, the first tool may seem patently obvious. It's called liking. People will actually do more for you when they like you. If you need help, they will help you. The friends that you have, hopefully you call them friends because you like each other, and that if one of you needed help from the other, that you would give that help and you would receive that help. If you have friends that you don't feel like you could ask them for help or you wouldn't help them, those aren't really friends. Those are really mere acquaintances. Now, if you help solve problems for people, they'll like you even more. This is why it's so important, again, to satisfy actual needs of a customer base. If they see you coming and you're the person that makes them feel happy, or you make them money, or you save them money, you make them look good professionally, they're going to be glad to see you coming and they're going to want to hear what you have to say. Liking can be achieved in a bunch of different ways. One of them is familiarity. So things that we've experienced multiple times, like going through a professional selling process, we will begin to like it a whole lot more than the first time that we've done it. Think about your friends again. When you met them, did you like them all instantly? Or did some of them take time and have to grow on you before you were comfortable communicating with them and opening up? Now, liking is also a function of attractiveness and similarity. Now, attractiveness does not have to mean physical attractiveness like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, for example, but it does actually help statistically in terms of increasing sales success rates. It's usually more of a total package issue. Smiling, your manner of dress, even just being a good listener for somebody makes you more attractive and likable to that person. Human beings are also really attracted to people who are similar to them. This is why we gravitate towards similar groups of people. People who act like us, people who talk like us, people who look like us. Think about any high school movie that you've ever seen that's got groups of jocks and preppies and nerds and goths. It's because these groups of people have a common bond that they can come together and form over. We also want to dress like our targets. If I'm selling to a surf shop and I show up in a suit and tie, they're going to look at me sideways and go, what is this guy doing here? Concomitantly, if I wear longboard shorts, sandals, and a t-shirt to a bank deal, they're probably going to throw me out. Unless, of course, I'm maybe Richard Branson. Positioning yourself to look like those to whom you're selling increases your credibility. The belief in which those people have that you know what their experience is like and that you have an effective solution for them because you are similar to them. Now, the next tool is commitment and consistency, which I touched on in an earlier segment. People who are inconsistent in their attitudes and behaviors are at best considered not trustworthy. At worst, they're considered to be cuckoo. Think about political campaigns and how they harp on the inconsistencies of other political candidates. Being a flip-flopper is like a death sentence. No one can trust what it is that you might do in the future. In addition, our own egos will help us justify post hoc almost anything we've done, whether it was right or wrong, it was a good decision or a bad decision. This is because we have to protect our self-esteem. We start down paths and we will continue down those paths rather than admit fault or guilt. I believed this once and told everybody I know that I believe in this, and so now that I've gone down that path, I have to stay down that path. It's better than dealing with the cognitive dissonance of going, yeah, okay, I was probably wrong. In sales, this can be incredibly valuable because we can guide people down a path of consistency. Again, the goal is not to dupe people here. It is to get past the barricades that people naturally erect to being sold to. And the technique for this is what I call small yeses to big yeses. I tell students this all the time when they're job hunting or looking for interviews. Don't just contact alumni and in the first communication, ask for a position. First, get in touch with a person and ask for a few minutes of their time. A few minutes isn't much to give, so most people are willing to give it, particularly to a student from a school that they went to. Ask how they got where they are, what they're doing now, and how you might follow a similar path to success. When they agree to talk with you, that's the first small yes. When you actually talk to them, you end with something like, thanks so much for your time. This has been really insightful and given me a lot of stuff to think about. If I have any further questions, would you mind if I got in touch with you in the future? That's a hard thing to say no to as well. There's your second yes when they agree. Consistency and hopefully also some familiarity and liking are beginning to form there. Wait a week or two, all while doing some research on the company or some things that you talked about in your conversation. Then get back in touch with that person. When they agree to this conversation, this is now yes number 3. Talk with them about what you researched and what you found and your excitement for the kinds of things that you've been talking about and what you've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. Speak of your intended dedication for going down a path like theirs. And then ask them, what are the next steps that you should take in order to go down a path like theirs? Are there other people that you might be able to talk to that they know to help you go down a path like that? One way or another, you will typically get yes number 4 right here. but you could get it in one of two different ways. And this is where I said I actually like being rejected or being told no thank you every now and again. When someone has built consistency with you over time by saying yes, they feel bad that they're now going to have to say no and break that train of yes consistency. Typically what they'll do, if they can't help you directly, is to create a list of other contacts for you and offer those up to you. So sometimes that one no leads to 5 potential new prospects. The beauty of this is you now have what we refer to as warm leads. Almost nobody likes to do cold calling, where you pick up the phone and you call somebody that you've never met or never talked to before in your life. But if you can say, hey, I was talking with Rafael from Boeing about mechanical engineering jobs, and he said that I should contact you, this opens up the door. He says, oh, well, I know Rafael. I'd be happy to talk with you. That mere relationship opened up the door for the first yes with that new prospect. Now, beyond internships and jobs, we use this in selling all the time. I can see that what I've got for you right now isn't fitting with your needs. Is there anybody else that you can think of who might benefit from the thing that I'm offering? Again, this felt psychological debt will often get people to give you numerous prospects because they can't say yes to you, and they'll feel bad. This rolls into the concept of reciprocation. When someone gives you something, generally you feel an obligation to give something back. This is one of the basic fundamentals of how societies are formed and how they work. This is why gratis is often so effective, giving people stuff for free. Because then they have some sort of felt debt that they have to repay. Well, I got this thing for free and I probably shouldn't have, so now I have to give something back. So this often leads to purchases. Charities use this technique all the time. They'll do free events where people will come in, but they feel like they have to actually give something. And what they give to alleviate their guilt for participating in something that was free is actually usually more than they could have gotten if the charity had just asked for that money. I'm a super great person because I did more than I was asked to do. Reciprocation also works with basic things like compliments. Have you ever noticed how in restaurants and certain retail outlets that sales associates will compliment you while you're there? It's because it pays off. Just because the thing is intangible does not mean that there is not a felt obligation to repay something that has been given. Now, having warm leads also does another thing for us, which is social proof, right? The basis by which we kind of look around our worlds to figure out how we're supposed to act. And if somebody that we know has referred somebody else to us, it must mean that this person is in the in-group and that they're worthy of us talking to them. We get rowdy at concerts. We're hopefully chilled and calm in classrooms. We dress like the people that are generally around us, and we behave in kind of similar fashions. That way it sets the tone for people within the group to know how they're supposed to behave, and it shows people outside of the group who that group is and how they behave and whether or not they would fit in and jive well with that group. Again, when you call that warm lead, it signals to that person that you're within the group and that you're a similar person. Oh, so-and-so talked to you and they're like me? Well, it must be worth my time to talk to you as well. Now, social proof is also associated with peer pressure. And this can be leveraged in a number of different ways in sales and marketing, but again, needs to be done so carefully. We can show hard numbers on the quantity of people using our products. We can show archetypes of the typical user of our products. We can also put our products in the hands of lots of different customers so that people can see them with those products and go, oh, that person's like me, I should be using that as well. Now, in a classic psychological experiment gone awry, Milgram had people shock other participants when they got answers wrong on a test. Why they did this was because of something called authority. The people had the trappings of authority. They looked like experts. They had lab coats, they had clipboards, and they looked like they were completely legitimate. It highlighted the fact that most people are willing to simply believe those perceived to be experts who physically look like they are experts. This is how con artists do what they do. They walk, they talk, they act like a certain person, and people just believe that that's who they are. Now we can throw Leo DiCaprio under the bus again here for his role in Catch Me If You Can, where he played a con artist. Now, though I've given you some morally depraved uses of authority, you should actually think about how to use these things for good. How about you really should be a subject matter expert of the things that you're bothering to sell to other people. By asking the right questions and providing the right level of details about questions asked of you, you'll be perceived as a subject matter expert. This is why companies like Pfizer do such intensive levels of training with their sales representatives who go out and sell to doctors. Having to convince these doctors, some of the smartest people on the planet, that you know what you're talking about. More time in the saddle is going to help with this. Like I said, having multiple different experiences, figuring out where it is that you're falling short and doing the research to come up with the answers, and improving your game every step of the way. If a problem keeps coming up, you better find an answer for the next time. Now, a final piece of the influence puzzle that I'm going to talk about here is something called scarcity. Now, this could be either real scarcity, where something is truly rare, or it could be feigned scarcity, as in the case of the Nintendo Wii when it first came out. They restricted production, demand stayed high, they were able to maintain a higher price as a function of that artificially created scarcity. Everybody wanted one. Everybody was willing to wait to get their hands on one, so those that didn't get their hands on initially would just wait and pay the same price several months down the road when it became available. Limited time offers also put pressure on people to act now. Ever heard of FOMO or FOLO? We'll make snap decisions under conditions of scarcity that are much easier for us to go back and cognitively justify post hoc. Again, when emotion drives our behaviors, it's much easier for us to go back after the fact and go, well, yeah, but I was acting under emotion, and so I didn't really have time to think about it. Now, when cognition drives behavior, it's much worse when we have to go back and accept fault, that we made some sort of error in our judgment. We should be smarter than that. If we can simply go, meh, it was in the heat of the moment, we excuse ourselves. Versus, I thought about that long and hard, and I'm an idiot, so I still made the wrong call. If you want to see some world-class abuses of these techniques, watch Wolf of Wall Street, Boiler Room, or Glengarry Glen Ross. Now, while these are appalling uses of these techniques, they actually serve to highlight how these techniques can be used effectively. Let's chat with a friend whose company trains sales associates and hires them out to other companies about how he views professional selling. All right, Ian Massenberg, COO and partner at Selling Factory. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Gavin.
Okay, so you spent over a decade in the energy industry, which is kind of interesting. So in natural gas, I think a lot of people kind of take for granted utilities. And I know I didn't prep you with this question in advance, but people take this for granted. It's like, well, what's selling is actually involved in utilities, right? So natural gas and other utilities, electric and whatnot. So what is actually the capacity of a sales professional in a utility?
It's a great question. And we spent 15 years trying to figure that out. What we really boiled it down to is finding what the value add is for a consumer in those territories or those areas. And what it boils down to is efficiency. And you would think this is strange too, but efficient billing, making sure you're able to bill on time, making sure that you have a proper support system and customer support lines that are well manned and well maintained, and you're able to throttle during peak times, peak volumes for people calling in and having questions or inquiries. And then just making sure that you have an excellent trade room or someone that can hedge either natural gas volumes or your electricity volumes, depending on what territories you're in. And a lot of what you're selling is the ability to predict and forecast futures and be able to make purchases out into the future and then lock those prices in for either your small consumer, your household, or small businesses, all the way up to your industrials. So making sure that you can really cover the full gambit, but have it all in-house so you can control costs.
Okay, so this is a lot of interlinkages with operations and finance and being able to forecast and predict and buy at the right price points and whatnot to make sure that you're making the most optimal money that you can.
Right. Yeah, and it's a slim margin game. I mean, when you're dealing with futures, you're really literally dealing with pennies in most cases. And knowing that, often when you're working with a customer, especially on the commercial side, a lot of what you're selling is yourself. You're selling the value of the company that it provides, being a secure system, and that you can give them options that maybe another supplier can't give. Like if you want to have someone at a low price point lock in for a long-term fixed price point for years, one company might be able to do that where another company might not be able to. So that's a differentiator in the product market, where you might be able to do a 5-year fixed rate, whereas another company may not be able to do that depending on how they've hedged.
Gotcha. So you spent about 3 years at a marketing automation company and then decided to co-found partner to create the Selling Factory. What went into the decision-making process there?
Yeah, great point. Pivot there. I spent the 3 years at the marketing automation company, going from the energy industry into SaaS platform systems and selling SaaS, really more from going from a complete outbound cold calling strategy and then pivoting almost completely to a 100% inbound strategy and a completely different market, different segment, all different vertical, and learning a brand new tool and program I learned a lot through that process, having been in the energy industry for 15 years and then 3 years in automation SaaS. What I learned through that was that I was both able to sell and manage sales, but I was also able to stay in communication with my previous boss, Brad Gamble, who's now my partner at the Selling Factory. And while I was at the automation company, we spent a couple of years really communicating back and forth on what was available to us in town. We're in Gainesville, Florida, home of the University of Florida. It is a top 7 university in the nation now. It makes my degree look better every year, which is great. And what we found was we have an endless supply of people that were craving experience, and we were good at sales. We understood the program, we understood how to coach it and teach it. And we had a population that wanted to learn it. So we started there thinking, okay, we could do some work there. And then we also noticed the University of Florida and the surrounding areas were putting just a lot of money into the Innovation Hub and to the Innovation Academy and the entrepreneurship program and the business school. And all that was kind of culminating at the same time, where lots of new businesses were starting here in town. Instead of graduates leaving and taking their amazing products, services, tools, ideas somewhere else, they were staying here in town, and many of them needed coaching or support, or as they were ready to launch to market, they needed help doing that. They were great engineers or great program designers, but they had no idea how to move to market. So
super common.
Yeah, so we kind of pieced those pieces together. We partnered with a third partner, Adam Grossman, and from there we built the Selling Factory. We've got 75 interns right now. We've operated with more than 50 clients in 3 years. So cruising right along.
And so tell us a little bit about exactly what you do with those interns, what your process looks like, what the outcomes are.
Sure. So basics are that they want to learn how to communicate. That's their interest, the students. And what we teach them then is the ways to properly communicate with people they never would have done so before while at school. So what we'll do is teach them list generation, lead qualifying, start to manage email engagement or outreach, email inbox management, messaging, all the way up to making outbound phone calls to set up demos or schedule meetings or generate interest or have people attend webinars or anything that you would have a entry level salesperson do at a company. And then we offer that service out to a client that may not want to or may not be able to do that internally. So, the goal is that we keep the employee, and we hire them and we teach them everything they need to know. And then from there, we still house those people. We still work with them. We manage them. And then we basically just sell their services or manage their services for a client rather than them hiring them internally. We go ahead and manage that for them. And then if it works out that while they're working with one of our clients or 2 or 3 of them over time, which is another added advantage, they don't just work with one internship or one client. Over their time with us, they'll work with 3, 4, 5. But if that works out where one of those clients upon that intern's graduation is looking to fill a role, it's a great transition. That intern may have already worked with that client for 2, 3 years, and they're instead of going into that junior entry level position, they could maybe go right into an account executive level position right out of college because they've been doing that work for 2, 3 years.
Gotcha. So in terms, talking about some of the techniques and whatnot, the things that you're training them on from the communications aspect specifically, or from the persuasive, side of the sales field, what do you all train them on from that perspective?
Well, first off, we use script lines. We use 20 years of industry knowledge to gauge how we're working with one client, what their messaging should be, how it should be pitched, what are their PowerPoints or value points. But before all of that, we work on soft skills. We work on their empathy levels, work on how they manage tone, manage pace, manage volume. All of those things are tough. So a lot of what we'll do is coaching one-on-one, where we'll do test calls and we'll record calls and we'll have them listen themselves. Humans, once they hear themselves, they either really don't like it and they want to change, or they really like it and they just want to improve and they know they're good at it. So either way, we do a lot of internal work before we launch them out to the field. But it's often experience or training that they wouldn't get from a company. Sales or companies in general hire salespeople normally because they expect them to come in and be able to do the work. and they don't have the infrastructure to really teach them some of those tactics. So that's another thing that they get from us they wouldn't get from a new employer.
Cool. So what are across all these different industries, right? I mean, thinking about B2B, B2C, and whatnot, what are the major differences, if there are any, in terms of professional selling?
Between B2B and B2C, or just in general?
Yeah, primarily, like, are there major differences between being a sales professional in a B2C context versus being in a B2B context?
Yes, but it's also usually driven by the tactics that are being employed to drum up customers or draw engagement. But the idea of communicating and selling is very similar. Making sure you understand that you're going to be able to match a product to a need or a service to a need. Make sure that both sides feel confident in the value of that service or offering, and that both walk away feeling confident that they made a good decision. But everything before that, making sure you're positioned properly, make sure you're talking to the right clientele or the right consumers, so you have a higher likelihood of closing a deal or finding a mutual value point. But the communication side, being able to have a conversation, is really what students right now are craving. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to have a communication or a conversation with someone. And at first, it's very awkward for them. And the students we've had over 200 now. Almost all of them have said, I need to learn how to have a conversation with an adult. And we allow them to do that.
Gotcha. Okay. So has COVID had any positive, negative pivot effects on your business model, on the business models of the people that you're serving?
100%. We were, up until March 9th, 100% in-house, as in we have a 5,000 square foot facility. Our interns work 12 hours a week, so they would come in for 2 hours a day or so and spend time with us as a group. So we would have anywhere from 20 to 30 interns in the office at any one time during the week. And in a selling environment, we always pitch ourselves of having a high energy, positive selling environment. Because in sales, you will have bad days. You will have times where you do not want to pick up the phone. And you can often rely on a support system around you to get you motivated or help you get to that next call. And March 9th, we had to navigate through everything just like everybody else. But we were able to quickly, within days, go to a fully remote workforce where every call was made through wherever they were living, through online portals. And we were able to pivot with, using Slack and using the phone system, the voice over IP system we have in place to make that transition. But even recently, we've started using a Mozilla Hubs virtual reality office where we've built out our own office. And we have all our interns log into our virtual reality office space, and they spend their entire shift in a room with all the other team members. They're able to talk to each other, hear each other. The coaching staff, the campaign managers are able to be in there with them, just like they would be sitting next to them, walk near them. As they get closer, they can hear them talking, they can coach them, or they can step away or turn down volumes. It's like being in an office. It's about as creepy as, Ready Player One, I think. We're getting there.
There are creepier movies, but have you had to change any things that you're teaching the interns as a function of COVID? Having to, you're talking about using different systems and whatnot. I've talked to other professionals in other capacities, throughout these interviews. And, one of the things they note is that, well, you can't go face to face anymore. It's really challenging to try to pull that off. So were they already set very well to be remote with the clients that they work for and sell for, or is that something that they're having to pick up now as well?
Yeah, so we've always been remote of our clients. So we've always worked in Slack with our clients or done video Zoom meetings or Google Hangouts meetings with our clients. So that was already in place. Further, most of our students are in the business program at school, and a lot of their classes are online. So a lot of what they do in general has been kind of pushed to an online environment. So they're quick to adapt to that. What we've had to work with them on is because they are at home and they're not near us, just supporting them, making sure that again, if they have questions or when they would normally just be able to reach over and talk or walk across the hall, Now they have to Slack us or video chat us or call us or whatever it might be. And just to get them to actually take that step to do it. We've had to really encourage them saying, listen, do not hesitate. Whenever you think you need to say something, act on something, do whatever, just do it. It's almost like a cattle prod at that point.
Gotcha. Well, Ian Massenburg, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, Gavin, always great talking to you.
All the best for a happy and healthy and profitable 2020.
Back at you, man. Enjoy it.
In the next episode, we'll finish up the course by discussing some primary marketing research techniques. Until then, remember, coffee is for closers. Get it started in here. Let's get it started in here. Let's tuck my shirt in here. All right. What do we got for you today? Watch. This can be fun thing by using an Excel spreadsheet. Salesforce.com is a great example of a company that has made its mark on industry by providing glasses cleaning. I cannot stand that I'm looking through muddy glasses right now. All right, that's a little better. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more, say no more. And the information that we start to create, wow. I'll refer you guaranteed foolproof. A social proofer. I don't know what that is. We can go out and put the hands in lots of different people's hands. We can put these hands in lots of different people's hands. Hands across America. Yeah, there was some song like that. I just butchered it, but whatever. Hands across my office, because ain't nobody else in it. This is COVID hands across America right now. It's like, well, I don't know. Actually, I guess if I stretched all the way out, I'd have 6 foot of distance with somebody between somebody else, right? Because I'm 6 foot tall, so my wingspan is probably about 6 feet. And if I had another 6 foot tall person, then we'd be approximately 6 feet apart, just our fingers touching. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I'm kind of losing my train of thought here.